You're watching This Week in Louisiana Politics with Fred Childers.
Good morning, I'm Fred Childers. Hope you're having a great weekend and enjoying your Sunday so far. Thanks for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Politics on your local election headquarters. Well, this week, Governor John Bel Edwards vetoed the congressional maps passed by the legislature. The governor says a second majority black district should be created to reflect the latest census data, which shows 1/3 of the state's population is black. The governor did not sign or veto the House and Senate maps and did sign the Bessie and the PSC maps. Civil rights groups are applauding the governor for his veto, but some say he did not go far enough. The NAACP Legal Defense Fund says the House and Senate maps violate the Voting Rights Act because they maintain the current number of majority-minority districts. An attorney with the LDF says she hopes the legislature will at least sustain the veto on the congressional map.
Those maps did not add any new opportunities for Black voters to have increased representation in the state legislature or in the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education for that matter. And that just doesn't reflect the census numbers. That doesn't reflect the reality of the state.
Lawmakers have until the end of the year to get maps passed and signed into law. If they don't, the courts will step in. The Louisiana Legislature is taking a deeper dive into the Ronald Greene case. A newly appointed committee held its first meeting earlier this week to investigate a reported cover-up. Political reporter Shannon Hecht explains what is yet to come.
Today was the first meeting of the special committee that is looking into the investigation of the Ronald Greene case. They decided their goal is to find out who knew what, when, and they made a big list of people they're hoping to hear from and potentially subpoena. The House Special Committee kicked off with a message of trying to find out what key players in the state police and the governor's office did or did not know about the potential cover-up of the Ronald Greene death.
Good. I'm not interested in any sort of witch hunt for any particular person. My only motivation in this committee is to get to the truth, whatever that may be and wherever that may lead us.
Members laid out who they would like to hear testimony from and requested messages and documents surrounding the communication of wiping phones and possible lies being spread. When the legislative session convenes on Monday, a House resolution will be voted on to give the committee subpoena power if any of the requested troopers or administrators refuse to come forward. Chairman Tanner McGee says that includes higher-ups in state police, and even the governor is not off the table.
So many state police officers are really good, decent people. It's unfortunate, though, in this incident, there were a few bad apples. At the end of the day, Mr. Chairman, Ronald Greene's death can be equated to a modern-day lynching.
This investigation differs from the Senate committee that is looking into state police practices and policies. They're hoping to hear their first batch of testimony next week after the regular session begins. At the Capitol for your local election headquarters, I'm Shannon Hecht.
The Louisiana Department of Insurance is looking to better protect homeowners when filing insurance claims after a hurricane. Insurance Commissioner Jim Donnellan introducing his catastrophe reform package, which includes 6 bills designed for better homeowner protection.
Our top priority is ensuring Louisiana consumers are protected, especially in the aftermath of a hurricane.
I believe this legislation will provide peace of mind and allow policyholders to focus on the immediate challenge of repairing their home instead of worrying about whether they're going to be canceled.
However, not everyone is happy with this new program. Groups like Real Reform Louisiana say the bills don't go far enough to help policyholders. Freshman Senator Jeremy Stein of Lake Charles also proposing a number of bills tackling insurance policies. One bill would require insurers to pay an increased penalty if they don't get their payment to customers in a timely manner. Another one of his bills establishes a state mediation program to help policyholders dispute those claims with companies. Several bills are being prepared that aim to improve the state's medical marijuana program. One bill seeks to expand the number of medical pharmacies in the state. Another would increase the number of cultivation licenses. Advocates for medical marijuana say these bills would stop patients from obtaining marijuana illegally. 1,500 people are in Louisiana prisons because of unconstitutional, non-unanimous jury convictions. There is an effort in the state legislature to get those people a chance at a new trial. Shannon Hecht breaks down the bills looking to undo the work of Jim Crow juries.
Up until a 2020 Supreme Court decision, Louisiana was one of 2 states that allowed juries to make a conviction with only 10 of the 12 jurors in agreement. The practice was outlawed in Ramos v. Louisiana, but the new rule does not apply retroactively.
You'd assume that there's automatically a remedy. Well, that remedy in this case has taken a lot of work to try to get to, and we're still not there.
Currently, there are about 1,500 people in Louisiana prisons who were put there by non-unanimous juries. 80% of those are black. Norris Henderson was convicted with a 10-2 jury and now is fighting to help people while the decision over if the law is retroactive is stuck in court.
The DA's Association want to wait on the state Supreme Court to see what the state Supreme Court does. Okay, if the state Supreme Court decides that is retroactive, then what?
Henderson believes that the case could wind up back in the federal court before the state makes a decision on their own. Bills by Representative Jason Hughes and Randall Gaines look to undo these convictions and give people a chance at a new trial, plea deals, or potentially become eligible for parole.
The Jim Crow roots of this practice and the disparate impact on our communities and the costs that we're spending to unconstitutionally convict people, and the high number of people who are innocent of the crimes that they were convicted of. We have to act this year.
We'll hear more from Shannon a little later on in the show. Lawmakers on Capitol Hill vote to fund the government, but some lawmakers are voicing their opposition to a bill they say has not one penny for Louisiana's disaster recovery. That's next. Stay with us.
This is your local election headquarters.
Welcome back. The New Orleans City Council unanimously approved a DNA testing lab for the city, which will allow for test results to be quicker and help to solve crimes, as thousands of cases are backlogged across the state. Anna McAllister reports.
A huge win in the battle against violent crime in New Orleans. The City Council approving requirements for a new DNA testing lab for Orleans Parish.
I'm very excited about it. We built the first one when I was the deputy chief in 2001. It was lost to Katrina.
Right now, all DNA evidence found at crime scenes in New Orleans must be sent to the state crime lab in Baton Rouge for testing, where there's a backlog of 2,500 cases. Ronald Surpass, former superintendent of the New Orleans Police Department and a professor at Loyola University, says having our own lab will expedite results.
At the Louisiana State Police, they have a prioritized system of who came in first, who came in next, et cetera. So the option to be able to build your own lab is very important for your citizens.
The NOPD's current solve rate for rapes in the city is only 9%. But once a DNA lab is established in Orleans Parish, that number is expected to drastically increase.
There's very few things you can do that are more helpful for your community than to have your own DNA lab, so you can prioritize your DNA positive rape kits so that you can analyze the DNA from the murder scenes in your community.
While Surpass believes a DNA lab in the city will help combat violent crime, he says it needs to be done right.
The city council cannot go cheap on this. Running a crime lab is an expensive proposition. It requires tremendous training, technical expertise, equipment, and maintenance.
The crime lab is set to be finished this spring. However, the accreditation process could take up to 5 years. Anna McAllister, WGNO News.
Seems promising. Well, the Louisiana delegation is sharing their frustration after hurricane relief aid was left out of the temporary government funding bill that just passed. Representative Garrett Graves hoped to bring billions of dollars to states impacted by natural disasters, but those efforts were blocked. Graves says so far, not one penny of previous relief money has made it to Louisiana.
But it is inexcusable to not come in and to address some of the priority needs in Louisiana and other areas that have just been devastated by 2020 and 2021 disasters.
Representative Clay Higgins also condemning the bill. Despite their objections, it is headed to the president's desk. The bill does include billions of dollars to support Ukraine. As the Russia-Ukraine conflict continues, gas prices are soaring across the globe. Senator Bill Cassidy is offering up his plan on how to help. Energy Operation Warp Speed would ramp up energy production in the U.S. It includes expediting the construction of pipelines, financing energy manufacturing. All ways, he says, will help with the current crisis. Coming up, Shannon Hecht joins me here on the desk to talk about the upcoming legislative session. Stay with us.
This is your local election headquarters.
Welcome back to This Week in Louisiana Politics. Well, tomorrow the legislative session, the regular legislative session, will begin. Lawmakers from all over the state will gather to start passing bills. So we've invited Shannon Hecht in the studio to talk about some of those bills. Shannon, you were saying that close to 1,000 bills have been pre-filed.
Over 1,000 have been pre-filed, yeah.
Over 1,000 have been pre-filed. So we wanted to just highlight some of the bills that will have the most impact to the state if they're passed, and the ones that will cause the biggest arguments, of course. So what comes to mind for you?
There's going to be some big topics coming up, namely the budget. The governor has already proposed his budget ideas, and there's some major projects that people are already picking apart. So that's one. CRT bills or ones related to that.
Critical race theory?
Yes, critical race theory. There's been a lot, and that's been a national issue that's now making its way here to Louisiana. There's stuff for vaccine discrimination, as well as insurance claims. After Hurricane Laura and Hurricane Ida, there's been a lot of issues that lawmakers are trying to tackle this year.
Yeah, we just heard from the insurance commissioner. He was talking about some of the bills that he wanted to see go forward so that they could lower, especially like auto insurance has been high for quite some time. So they're going to tackle this again. This is not the first time they've tried to tackle insurance bills.
Yeah, it's a tough fight because obviously the insurance companies, the lawmakers don't want to upset them too much, so they don't want to do business here in Louisiana. But it's also, some of their policies really are hurting those who need help the most, especially after these major storms. So one of the bills looks to limit the number of adjusters, so people don't have adjuster after adjuster coming to their house, prolonging their funds that they need to fix that house, among many other bills that are expected to come through.
Mm-hmm. I was surprised to see them take another stab at the minimum wage. There's another effort to raise the minimum wage for Louisiana. Any indication that that's going to get some more traction this time around?
I've heard a lot of discussion and whispers over the last several months about minimum wage at the Capitol. I'm not clear if it's going to make it out of committee or get passed by any means, but there's definitely going to be a talk about it this year. There's a couple bills, one by Representative Kyle Green, where it would be a constitutional amendment. So the voters would get a chance to decide this fall if they want to see the minimum wage increase to about $11.65. There's another by Representative Denise Marcel, where it would increase the minimum wage without a vote of the people, but just by a vote of the legislature, little by little over the next few years, going up to around $12, I believe, at the end of it.
Mm-hmm. And there's another effort to do away with Louisiana's death penalty as well. This is interesting because we have seen some traction in the form of prison reform over the past couple of years. I think there's going to be a pretty lengthy discussion on the death penalty.
Definitely. That's also by Representative Kyle Green out of Orleans Parish, and he says, you know, it costs a lot of money to keep people on death row. Louisiana hasn't executed anyone in several years, so he wants to really tackle that issue and, you know, try to see if he could save the state some money. But capital punishment is a hot topic, so it'll be interesting to see how this turns out at the Capitol.
Yeah, absolutely. And we, like I said, we have seen quite a few efforts. You know, we saw the unanimous juries that passed. And we've seen some prison reforms get a pretty warm welcome there at the Capitol. Yeah, so the non-unanimous juries, we heard a little bit earlier in the show about that. They're trying to tackle that where the Supreme Court in 2020 made that so it was an illegal practice, unconstitutional, but it doesn't apply retroactively. So those who are already in prison due to a non-unanimous jury, there's a new legislation to try and give them a chance at a new trial or maybe a plea deal or eligible for parole. So that'll be another big talker this year. Something you mentioned in the opening, vaccines and preventing discrimination. So I was surprised to see this too, because I think a lot of people might consider this a moot point right now. Right. You know, with the pandemic, we're doing very well with COVID numbers right now. A lot of, if not all of the mandates have been lifted throughout the state, but there are several bills and resolutions that look to prevent any discrimination based on your vaccination status. And that really comes down to keeping businesses and, you know, medical services from not allowing people who are unvaccinated against COVID from getting their services, things like that. So for example, the vaccine proof requirement in New Orleans, that's been challenged several times. So there's a litany of bills looking to address that. Right. And we know something that always causes an argument down at the Capitol, and that's money. So they'll be discussing the budget. They have actually a good problem to deal with this time around. They're budgeting with a surplus. But whenever that happens, there's always a big debate on where that surplus should go. Right. You know, Louisiana very rarely has extra money. They have a surplus as well as excess on top of federal dollars. So they need to dole out the last of the American Rescue Act money that is to address the issues from COVID. But the governor is also trying to use some of the excess money that came from the state doing very well economically coming out of the pandemic. So he wants to put $500 million towards a new Mississippi River Bridge here in Baton Rouge. He also wants to have teacher pay raises, which he said last year, but it ended up not being as much as he wanted to see. And already Senate Finance, House Appropriations are already starting to kind of pick apart about whether or not this is the right move. And we're also expecting a potential fiscal cliff in a few years when some of the half-cent sales tax rolls off and the economy kind of slows down after bouncing back. So it's going to be a lot of debate over whether all this spending is a good idea. I can tell you that term fiscal cliff is triggering to some people, and some lawmakers that are still down there from a few years ago remember that term being thrown around so much, and it was such a huge issue for them to deal with. It caused for some late nights down there at the Capitol for lawmakers and us reporters as well. But it's something that they do not want to hear. You also mentioned the Mississippi River Bridge. This is something that we've heard for a long time now, that it needs to be replaced and that it's going to be replaced. Governor Edwards has said he wants to do this. He wants to use that money to do this. What could be the argument against that? So pretty much everyone understands that the bridge needs to be replaced. It's a huge undertaking, but what the governor wants to do is take $500 million and put it away in a bank account until it's time to start building this bridge, which they're projecting to be around $2 billion total for the project. But right now they don't have routes set. They don't know where the bridge is going to go. So people who are arguing against it say it's too soon just to put away all this money that a future legislature can potentially dig into and take away from. But the governor is saying, and you know, DOTD has also said that they need to invest in this project and start putting money away. So it gives that confidence that this actually will happen in our lifetime, basically. So there's a lot of back and forth on these about, you know, timing and how much of this project is actually already in motion. Yeah, and I wonder if it would even be, it probably would not be completed within Governor Edwards' term. Definitely not. He's only got 2 years left, but I think what he is trying to say is that, you know, with these investments in infrastructure are crucial to, you know, start now. You know, the best time to plant a tree is 40 years ago. That's what he's kind of feeling with these bridges here. All right. All right. Well, we know you will be covering every single day of the regular legislation legislative session. I know it's exhausting, but you do a great job for us. Thank you so much, Hannah.
Thank you, Fred.
All right, stay with us. We'll be right back.
This is your local election headquarters.
Welcome back. Looking ahead to the coming week, the moment we have all been waiting for, the regular legislative session kicks off tomorrow afternoon. At 1, the governor will address the joint chambers with his State of the State address. Then throughout the week, the first bills will be heard in committee. And of course, we will be there following all of that. And don't forget to stay tuned to brproud.com for the latest updates on the session. Just look for your local election headquarters page and download our free BR Proud app to keep the session with you everywhere you go. Thank you for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Politics. I'm Fred Childers. Stay safe, stay informed, and I'll see you next Sunday right here on your local election headquarters.